It's late. And in the quiet, yeah, we like to believe we're the masters of our own attention. We tell ourselves that if we just try a little harder, if we're just more disciplined, our minds will, eventually cooperate. But there's this quiet, unsettling truth that most of us only really face when we're alone with our work, and it's that your brain is not a machine you can just switch on. So let's dive right into this, because if you've ever felt that struggle, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It seems like the harder you try to force focus, the more your mind just retreats into this state of restless resistance. So why on earth does that happen? Well, here's the first big idea. The problem probably isn't a lack of willpower. Not at all. It's that we've been taught to treat focus as an act of force, something we have to conquer, rather than an act of alignment. And this just captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? That amazing state of deep focus or flow feels like this happy accident, something totally outside of our control. And when it leaves, we have absolutely no idea how to get it back. Okay, so let's talk about the mind itself, because the issue here isn't some kind of personal failing. For a lot of people, it's actually a cognitive reality. Your brain might just be wired a little bit differently. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Psychology is showing that some brains are just built for continuous processing. This isn't necessarily anxiety. It's something called cognitive depth. It means your mind is automatically analyzing, questioning, and replaying things because it's wired to find patterns and understand things on a really deep level. The only problem is it really struggles to switch off. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how we label ourselves versus what might actually be going on inside our heads. We call it laziness. But maybe it's just your brain getting bored and absolutely starved of the complexity it craves. We call it procrastination, but it might be a deep fundamental resistance to doing work that feels pointless. And that lack of discipline? It could just be your brain refusing to release the dopamine needed for tasks it finds too shallow. You aren't failing. You're likely just fighting a cognitive system that finds the ordinary world, well, exhausting. So if it's not about willpower, then what is it about? To get into a flow state pretty much on command, we have to understand the brain's real underlying motivation system. And here's the crucial point. Your brain is constantly doing this subconscious math. It's a natural efficiency machine. So if a task feels inefficient or unnecessary or just totally disconnected from who you are and what you value, your brain is going to resist spending the energy. It's not being stubborn. It's actually being smart with its resources. Now, think about it. Most of us operate in a kind of survival mode, right? We're instantly reacting to every notification, every thought, every impulse. To break that cycle, we need to use what psychologists call cognitive control. And all that really is the ability to pause. And this is exactly how you do it. An impulse arrives, a phone notification, a random thought. Your automatic reaction is to just jump on it. But right here, in step 2, you introduce the pause. You create this tiny little space. And in that space, something incredible happens. Your brain shifts from that reactive, emotional survival mode into its calm, reasoning mode. That pause, that is the doorway to real focus. So how do we use this pause to find that elusive state of flow? Well, the key is to stop thinking of your focus like a switch and start thinking of it more like a corridor, a very specific sweet spot you have to learn to navigate to. This is the first thing you really have to get. You can't just flip it on. It doesn't work that way. Instead, you got to think of it like a high-performance engine. It needs the right kind of fuel, the right octane, to perform at its best. If you give it the wrong fuel, or not enough, it just sputters and stalls. This chart breaks it all down perfectly. See, when the challenge is too low, you just get bored and mentally tired. When the challenge is high, but the meaning is low, like you just don't care about the outcome, you get resistance. Your brain basically refuses to engage. But that sweet spot, that flow corridor, is right there at the bottom, where the challenge is high and the meaning is high. That's where you get what's called focused struggle, and that is the state where flow lives. So, real clarity begins the moment you stop fighting your nature and you start negotiating with it. It's not about forcing anything. It's about creating the right conditions for your mind to thrive. And, a huge part of this is just removing all the constant stimulation. We often fear silence. We think it's empty, but it's not. It's the training ground where your brain can finally enter a deep processing mode, where real reflection and creative insights can actually happen. So how do you get there? Well, you start by embracing what's called intellectual humility, basically being okay with what you don't know, which forces you to find a really strong why. Then you align the task with your personal values, so the effort feels authentic to you. You become an observer of your own habits, just noticing your patterns without judging them. And finally, you adjust your world around you until your brain feels safe enough to just let go and immerse itself. And this brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial takeaway of all. The goal isn't to command your mind. It's to understand it so well that you can simply get out of its way. Just let that one sink in for a second. Flow isn't some prize you win for being perfectly disciplined. It is the natural state that just emerges when you're honest with yourself about what truly challenges you, what gives you a sense of meaning, and what your mind needs to feel engaged and alive. And yeah, it requires a little bit of courage to be out of sync with a world that values speed over depth. This right here is the ultimate strength. It's not about being the loudest or the fastest person in the room. It's about having that quiet, internal control to just pause, to reflect, and to choose your focus deliberately. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you feel that resistance, that urge to just force a result, try the pause instead. Stop reacting, let the silence settle in, and ask yourself this. Because once you understand how to work with your mind instead of against it, you might just find that the flow state was never something you had to command in the first place. It was simply waiting for you to get out of its way.